is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video speaking on tarot tools and things that we use that aren't necessarily the deck itself that I think are important and interesting to take note of and to understand when we're reading. I was thinking about the things that I put in my tarot bag, which I talked about in my favorites video, but there are some others, and there are a lot of things that I like to factor in and have going on when I'm reading for myself or others, and I think that they are important in their own way, and thinking about them, being very conscientious about the tools that we're using and why we're using them, I think factors into how well we read, the ways that we read for ourselves and others, and that they have a larger and more profound influence on our reading practices and results than we might think. So I'm going to take you guys through the tools that I thought of offhand that I find to be really beneficial or important for me when reading, and why that might be and in what ways I use them. So I think that this is just more so about sharing, but also creating a dialogue and getting us to think more about what it is that we are bringing into our readings, how we are conducting readings, and what that all entails for us. It is a process. It's not just the cards themselves. There's so much more that goes into it, and the environment and things that we're using are a big part of that. So without any further ado, I'm going to get into some of these tools. There's no rhyme or reason to the order in which I'm sharing them, but I'm just have them down beside me and I'm just going to bring them up. So yeah, we'll start that. So first I'll start with a big one, and I guess so I brought this over. So this would just be a writing pad, the kind that you can rip out really easily, one of those quick and cheap ones that you can get. I just made a video or filmed a VR to Nina's what she does for what I do for the environment and for myself. And this one is a pad that has an emphasis. I think it's recycled paper. So this is an environmentally friendly pad. So we're playing into that. But this is just one that I think is really important. Always having a pen and paper next to you, or at least for me, having a pen and paper next to me when I'm doing readings is really important for this kind of notebook, the kind that's really easy to tear out. I find that I have this around for when I want to take notes to give to a client. Sometimes I'll also use it if there are words that spring into my head when I'm flipping over cards or doing a reading, and it's almost, I wouldn't say it's what is that called? Immediate writing? Not necessarily immediate writing, although it can be very similar, but just jotting things down so that I don't forget and I can return to certain points, and I'll almost have markers in my head that I connect with, say, the keyword that I wrote down, so I know to return to that, or that it's a focal point for the reading. Likewise, at the end, if there are certain things that I want them to walk away with, and say, I do allow my clients to record readings, the audio, the video, whatever they might want. Even for myself, if there are certain things that I want to remember about a reading, or kind of have steps, key points, actions that maybe I discussed with the client, or actions that I might want to take myself, I will really organize it at the end. So I'll have the sort of the jotting of things as I'm going, or maybe right off the bat when I'm starting a reading, and then at the end, or more toward the middle to the end, I will start to write down key points to remember, actions that I might want to take, things to keep in mind. So overall, this, I would say, is really beneficial to me when I'm doing readings for myself and for others. If I'm doing readings for myself, I would say I would definitely use this for more of that immediate writing, or writing of just thoughts, phrases, words that fly into my head that might not even make sense, more of that intuitive action that is detached from maybe the conscious mind. So I love to use this for myself in that way. But if I'm recording things that I want to remember for myself, I'll actually go to my own notebook. So if it's for clients, I would rip out things from here to give to them that have been written down. But if I'm just actually writing things down to be remembered, and the cards themselves, I would use a notebook. And this isn't something I do, of course, with every reading. Sometimes I'm just laying down cards quickly. I don't have the time or inclination to really remember them, or I don't find the readings to be of as much consequence. But there are times when I sit down and do larger readings and really create a space for myself, and that would be when I would want to have the option to write things down, both in the immediate sense and to remember later on. So I think that paper and pen for me are vital tools when I'm reading that can enhance the experience, and especially in the long term, what I'm taking away from the experience, and what I might want to turn back to and reflect on later, and actions I might want to take. So very vital for me at least, and I think that this is something a lot of people could gain or could benefit from. So next I will bring in crystals. I don't think that crystals are for everybody. It's a subjective. Of course, all of these are subjective, and these are the tools that I use. I'm not thinking that every single person is using all of these. Likewise, you maybe have tools that I don't have that are very important to you. But for me, crystals, I wouldn't say all of my readings I'll have crystals, but I like to have them around, and I picked the two that I have around the most. These are two that I find that I bring into my own reading space for myself and readings for others the most, and that I will bring with me if I'm going places. I will keep at my, or bring over to my reading table, which is actually just behind you guys. I will bring that over for myself. I like to have this big smoky quartz point for absorbing, say, excess energies, negative energies, outside energies. So it in my opinion, it siphons off my excess energy. It keeps me focused. Any negativity just kind of doesn't permeate the space, so that we can keep things as objective as possible for the purposes of learning, getting the intuition flowing, allowing messages to really come into their own in an organic way. Likewise, I would say when I'm reading for others, especially if it's an event or if I'm doing readings back to back, I'll have this around to cleanse my deck and the space itself. So it will keep the space clean just in it being there, but for the deck, sometimes I will even take the deck itself and tap it onto this, or lay it on top of one of the larger ridges for a minute. If it's really back-to-back readings, I'll be sure to tap the deck against this to have it almost take or siphon off the energy of, say, the last person, because when I do readings for others, I will have them hold the deck. Sometimes I'll have them shuffle the deck, but I always have them hold the deck and cut the deck so that their energy can be within the cards, so to speak. So I like to use this for siphoning off that energy and cleansing a deck. Likewise, I like to use, it's a chunk of a light colored rose quartz, just a rough chunk, and I think it really brings a compassionate, empathetic, heart-centered aspect to readings and really creates a positive atmosphere, I would say. It's easy to get critical when we're doing readings and things that we might want to reflect on, things that we want to change. We're looking into tough topics. Nobody comes to a reading because everything is good. If everything were perfect and good and we were content with things as we see them to be, we probably wouldn't look to the cards for answers or reflections or predictions of any sort. So I think that this is great. I find it to add a lighthearted levity and to keep things compassionate, empathetic, and heart-centered, which ultimately I think leads to very positive readings. I wouldn't say positive in that we're sugarcoating anything, but positive in that we walk away feeling content and like we've gained something from a reading. So crystals for me are key tools. Next, I will go into, I'll say incense, and I'll be quick with these. I know a lot of people like incense, and sometimes I will sage or create more smoke and smell-oriented environment. Lately, I have been very sensitive with my throat and sinuses to smokes and scents, so I like incense a lot. I will occasionally use them. I can't use them in a space that's not well ventilated or for long spans of time. So I don't place that much importance on these anymore. I have alternatives, which would be crystals and other things I'm going to talk about, but I do like incense, and I find that I know a lot of people like incense, and I think there's something to be said for creating an ambiance and scent and sound and having that almost thicker atmosphere that's created through the smoke. So incense I really like. Different types I think kind of give off different energies and feelings. Like sandalwood has that very reverent, purifying, almost divine. It reminds a lot of people of churches, if they have a Catholic or Christian background. So yeah, and then I like pine as well. To me, I have it upside down, but it reminds me of, say, the earth and the natural world and sort of the energy and divinity where that's found. These are two of my favorite types of incense scents, and this is a brand that I like as well because they're nice and small, and I like that. So next we will get into, I guess we'll do candles. And so there's a little bit, I guess not a lot to talk about with candles, but I'll try to make it make sense. So especially in my own reading space, these are two that are pretty much unmoving. I fill them with tea lights, they are selenite. So this would be almost bringing in the crystal and the candle and combining them. I think that having the warm light that a candle emits adds to the atmosphere. I think candles are quite energetic. A fire, a flame brings a sort of energy, a focal point. It's something that one can, say, gaze off into and allow the conscious mind to take a break and for messages to come through. So if I'm staring at a flame, sometimes that allows things to enter my headspace more easily than if I were, say, gazing around and didn't have one centered point to focus on. Likewise, I think that, well, selenite is really, I think, good vibe, high energy as far as a crystal goes. So these two, I would say, I don't usually bring places, but I keep them at my personal reading space. So if you get a Skype reading from me or something, they'll be there. Or if I'm doing email readings, you won't actually be able to talk to me. But if it's a video or Skype reading, you'll probably see these. And I think that they add a lot to my reading space. And I enjoy them. And I also have another, that I'll have these on either side. And then I'll have just a glass tea light holder that has 3 tea lights in it that go in between. So that I really have just this whole line of candles that creates a really warm, natural lighting atmosphere, I guess. So I really enjoy that, and I prefer dim lighting and natural lighting as opposed to bright lights and artificial lights. So to me, natural lighting feels more organic and attuned to, say, messages and an organic experience in reading. Dim lighting, I think, almost allows my mind to operate at different levels and for my imagination and my sense of wonder to really come alive. So that, I would say, lighting is actually a big tool for me, and how I manipulate lighting and the lighting that I have available to me at any given time. So that can affect the way that I read as well. So lighting is a tool, and it's not one that we have entire control over, but sometimes we do, and we can at least influence it. So figure out what different lightings do for you and how they affect your reading style, and maybe toy and tweak with that a bit. And if you know what lighting works for you, that would be really interesting as well. So yeah, there's these candles, and then as far as candles that I might use when I am on the go, I mentioned these in my favorites, but this one has the added benefit of having crystals in it, green aventurine, and it is a good luck gem candle. I think that just bringing the idea of good fortune in all regards to a reading for both you and a client, and if I were just doing the reading for myself, can be beneficial. We want high and good energy surrounding us. And then there's, depending on the scent, I, especially for readings, but even just as a human being, prefer candles and scents that are, one, not so overpowering and strong. I don't want to feel like I'm about to cough or like it's just overwhelming. I like a nice scent that's it's subtle but detectable in the air, and it just feels like it's a part of the atmosphere as opposed to being imposed upon the atmosphere. And then I like scents that are heavier instead of light and bright. I think that creating a heavy atmosphere through scents, for me, feels ideal and allows me to tap into my intuition, and it just feels more mystical in a way, which I think, of course, adds to it. In all of this, I'm creating an atmosphere that I find to be ideal for reading. So I like heavier scents, and that might not be for everybody, but I think experimenting with the types of smells and scents and atmosphere that we use is vital for us to understand our ideal circumstances and ambiance and environment for reading. So I really like this one with the gems, the good luck candle. It's by a brand called Harmonia. And yeah, really great one. And then again, both of these were my favorites videos, but this one's called Dawn, and it is by Herland Home. And this one feels extra special because my sister got it for me, but it feels very esoteric and fun and mystical. And I like that. It has that subtle, organic type of heavy scent. I like scents that are more natural and smell more as though they've come from, say, an essential oil or a natural ingredient as opposed to a harsh perfume. So I look for all natural candles and say based in soy and things like that. And it's nice when they're made of glass and things that are better. I mean, most candles, you can't really put them in plastic, that would melt them, but yeah, So I like natural candles, natural scents, heavy scents, subtle scents, that if that makes sense. So yeah, great ones. That's what I look for in a candle. And I do prefer to use matches when possible. I think I like the smell of a match being lit, the idea of your hand and friction creating an ignition that is, it almost feels magic. I mean, it is, it's a chemical reaction. So I prefer matches when I can, but I mean, a lighter will do. I just think matches are more fun. And then I have, how I mentioned that I have alternatives to things like incense and things that create a lot of smoke. The candles are one, the crystals are one. Those are energetic things that I think replace a lot of what incense can do for me. Likewise, I use sound as one, a clearing and a centering. So to cleanse the space and to center the space and sort of give a very definitive starting point in a linear time sense for the beginning of a reading and the culmination of a reading. So we almost have carved out, not just in space but in time, a place for the reading to stand, and that stands out and is its own standalone thing, if that makes any sense. So I'll begin a reading with a sound, and one that I really enjoy is my chimes. So yeah, I'll start with that, and it's nice to end with that as well. It feels like I am almost snapping myself into attention, centering myself, centering all that is around me. It feels like it almost harmonizes the air and gives it a nice little cleanse, and it's nice. And I think that it's also a part of it again is just that mental thing, that ambiance. But I do enjoy that, and you can use anything. If you have a tuning fork, if you have a singing bowl or a sound bowl of some sort, if you have a bell, if you have anything. I even sometimes, if I don't have anything at my disposal, and I'm kind of preferring to have some sort of sound or something to signify the beginning of a reading to center myself, I'll focus on my breathing and the sound that I create. So I might do something like a very, very intentional exhale that is stronger and more auditory than a normal exhale. So like to start. And I might do the same at the end of a reading. Likewise, I might do something like even pursing my lips and doing sort of more of a throat sound, maybe like a hum or like a or a I know that sounded weird. I might do it a little bit differently than that, but just something like that, an auditory experience, if that's something that you think you might benefit from. And when I'm in the absence of a physical tool, I have the tool that is my throat or my voice or my breathing to some regard or some aspect to create that. So that's that. And then I will get into just something. Oh, I had my journal over here. Recording readings as well. I mentioned jotting down things for the future, but just actually keeping a record of your readings. I think that it helps us to grow and to learn, and to it makes it more of a cumulative experience in that we do have a baseline, and it progresses from there, and we can reference back. It's nice to look back and see how accurate our readings were, how they played out, what came to fruition, what actions we actually took to heart, and if we're making changes that we lay out for ourselves and others. Well, especially with ourselves, because that's how we can really monitor things. But yeah, recording, so journal, not just even that pad and paper, but a journal, especially when you're reading for yourself, I think is really important. And I'm not the best with it, but it's good to just try, and when you can. And sometimes I'll even just record the question and the cards, and I'll be too lazy to write anything else down. But at least then I can reflect on, say, what certain cards came up for me at a given time for certain questions or certain topics. So it's just good to have. And then I will get into having just, the deck itself, but the reading bag, the thing that you choose to house the deck in for the protective purposes. I think that it's nice. It makes you feel like it's safe. It has a place that is not just when you're reading it, but you're almost taking it from its place and putting it and returning it to its place after. When it's in here, I feel like it's protected both physically and energetically, and I think that there's something unconsciously that gives me a peace of mind in knowing that the deck is safe and sound and almost like being renewed when it's in its bag, and that it has gone home to the bag and then comes out of the bag for a purpose. to me, there's something about that. I know that that's a small thing, but yes, the where you're housing the bat or housing the deck, I think plays a part, and it is a tool, and it's something that it matters. It matters to an extent. So yeah. And then I have reading cloths, or a cloth of sorts. That's a key tool for me. I really like to read on a cloth as opposed to just on a surface. There's something about setting this space out that is for the cards, for the reading that it's going to take place within, that just feels right. You're kind of just setting physical parameters on the reading and what's going on within it. It gives you it gives you sharp lines and boundaries to focus within, so that you can maybe eliminate distractions beyond that, where your focus is really this square or this piece of fabric and what's taking place within it, and you're marking that out very consciously. And so there's just something to that, and the space that you create through laying out a reading cloth and having the cards and the reading take place within that cloth. So there is something to be said for that, and I think that reading cloths are a really vital tool for me. Finally, and I don't know, I guess I just thought that this would be, I guess this won't be for everybody, but reading is a tactile experience. I know a lot of us talk about that and love to use the word tactile, which I think is a great word. I just hear it a lot, so yeah, I know that a lot of people like that word. And yeah, so I have hand lotion. I just have hand lotion that I transferred into a travel size or a travel bottle that I'll have in a bag when I'm going anywhere. But I suffer from dry hands very often, and when my hands are dry, I can have this almost sensation on my palms that feels like that gives me, not like a pet peeve, but you know, like when nails are on a chalkboard and you get those like chills that run up you. If my hands are overly dry, and especially with certain card stocks, when I'm touching cards and my hands are really dry, it's not a good feeling, and suddenly all I'm focusing on is that physical sensation and the unpleasantness that it's creating for me. And when my hands are nice and moisturized, I feel like that's one less thing to focus on in a reading. So having my hands feel like they're in their optimal state is strangely really something that I need in a reading. So for me, a big reading tool is hand lotion. I suffer from really dry hands, so if that's something that you struggle with, and having dry hands or the feeling of dry hands against the cards themselves is a distractor, then hand lotion might be a big tool for you. And that's just an example of one that's a little bit of a quirk. That's something that I'm sure a lot of people won't count as a tool for themselves. So this brings me to the end, at least, of the tools that I pulled out offhand that came to mind for me. I would love to know what some of your tools are, if you have some of the same tools that I have, and how they play out and work for you. If you have any of those more quirky tools that might be more unique to you or that I haven't mentioned, I'm very curious to know. I love to know these things. So please feel free to mention those. And be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of video and are looking for more. And until next time, bye guys.